This is the Momentum Podcast. Because of what we do at Simple Operations, the company that my wife Katie and I run, we get the question over and over again, how do I hire a COO? And we help entrepreneurs simplify operations, put a team in place so that the entrepreneur, the visionary themselves, can do less as the company scales, become more strategic, and grow their business even faster. And this question comes up over and over again. How do I find this person? How do I hire a COO? Well, for most companies that are at the beginning stages of contemplating this question, for most visionaries, if this is you, at the beginning stages of contemplating this question, how do I hire a COO is probably the wrong question. I'm Alex Sharfin, and this is the Momentum Podcast, made for empire builders, game changers, trailblazers, shot takers, record breakers, world makers, and creators of all kinds. Those among us who can't turn it off and don't know why anyone would want to. We challenge complacency, destroy apathy, and we are obsessed with creating momentum so we can roll over bureaucracy and make our greatest contribution. Sure, we pay attention to their rules, but only so that we can bend them, break them, then rewrite them around our own will. We don't accept our destiny, we define it. We don't understand defeat because you only lose if you stop, and we don't know how. While the rest of the world strives for average and clings desperately to the status quo, we are the minority, the few, who are willing to hallucinate there could be a better future. And instead of just daydreaming of what could be, we endure the vulnerability and exposure it takes to make it real. We are the evolutionary hunters, clearly the most important people in the world, because entrepreneurs are the only source of consistent, positive human evolution, and we always will be. I get to talk to visionary entrepreneurs all the time. It's one of the joys of what I do. I love working with visionaries. I love working with people who have new ideas. I love working with people who are willing to go into the future, create a new reality, come back to the present, and demand it becomes real. And one of the conversations I have with visionaries so often is based on the question, how do I hire a COO? And if I had to give somebody instructions on how to hire a COO, I could. You know, it's a process of looking at what the company needs, building out a job description, looking at how many people that COO is going to be managing, what is their day-to-day going to look like, and then going out and finding that person. But for most companies, I think this is the wrong question. I think that how do I hire a COO should really be replaced with the question, do I need a COO? And if not, what do I really need? Let me share this just with kind of an aggregate story of what I see over and over again and what I've seen a ton in the past couple of months. Entrepreneurs will say something like, I'm going to hire a COO for my business. And the business might be a $1.5 million company with, say, a team of 5 to 7 people. A COO is a chief operations officer. A COO is a C-level executive that is overseeing a broader organization, usually an entire operations department, and then having influence on a company that has multiple departments with multiple C-level executives and leaders in place. That is a very high-level position that if you bring a COO into a 5 to 7 person company, you're going to do one of two things. One is give somebody a title for a job that they really don't have because the company doesn't support it and probably pay too much for them. Or two, you're going to go out and find somebody who's actually been a COO that's going to come into a smaller organization and not have enough to do. I think that, part of this question, how do I hire a COO for visionary entrepreneurs, is really the question, how do I get someone else to do this for me? I'm frustrated with operations. And if this is you, believe me, I've been there and I talk to entrepreneurs that are there all the time. You're not alone. If you're frustrated with operations, if things aren't going well, if the company's grown to 1 million or 2 million, or it's on the way there and you're starting to see breaks in the armor, or cracks in the armor, chinks in the armor, whatever the phrase is. If you're starting to see issues on a daily and weekly basis where operations is not where you want it to be, if you're starting to have some concerns by customers, if there's starting to be some issues with projects not getting done, the instinct for us as visionaries is, how do I hire somebody to solve all of this? How do I find the person who can come in and fix it all? And here's what I see over and over again. And I've been doing this for a long time. And what I see over and over and I've now had enough time to actually like follow up on these conversations, is I see an entrepreneur who's in this situation that says, I'm going to go out and hire a COO. And I'll have the conversation with them. Hey, I don't know if this is the right move right now. It doesn't feel like you have enough for them to do. But some people get kind of stuck in this idea that they want somebody to go hire, or they want to hire somebody to fix all of their operations. And so they'll go out and do it. And then the subsequent conversation with that I have with them is, I'm getting rid of this person who's a COO. It didn't work. They came in and they just didn't do what I needed them to do. Operations didn't get simpler. It got more complicated for me. I'm more frustrated than I was before. They didn't really understand how we run our business. And in a lot of cases, I think it's because the person has overhired, or at least given way too much of a title to somebody coming into a company and brought in the wrong type of person. And I see this over and over again. And again, I think part of this is I want to hire a COO so I don't have to do anything. And that's just not how this works. That's not how transitioning from being the visionary entrepreneur that's doing everything to having help and support in the operations of your company works. In fact, what I just outlined, that transition from you doing everything to having help and support in your company, is a process. It's not just a single hire. It is a process of going through and methodically being able to permanently delegate all the things that you're doing. So, in this transition of doing everything to getting help, we have to acknowledge the fact that as the visionary entrepreneur who's brought a company to life, who's brought a company from an idea to actually creating revenue, to actually having customers, to having a product, to creating an outcome in the world, you probably have done everything, or most everything, in order to make that happen. You're the person that understands where you've been. You're the person that understands where you are, and you're the person that understands where you want this company to go. And so bringing somebody in to fix it all for you is not only incredibly challenging and causes frustrations, it's near impossible if you're not intimately involved. And if you're in the early stages of getting help, in the early stages of finding somebody to help you with operations, I would tell you that in most cases, the majority of cases, you don't need a C-level executive unless your company's exploding. Like I'm talking adding 7 figures of revenue a quarter, then maybe you need somebody at a higher level, maybe. But in almost every case where I talk to someone who's in the early stages of transition from doing everything to getting help, what they really need is a good executive assistant or just an assistant. And there's a process that you can use in order to go from doing everything to methodically and systematically, permanently delegating what you do so that you don't have to do it all. And it's way more effective than trying to find somebody that's going to come in and fix everything. The process is simple. It's our process for permanent delegation. You bring in an assistant, an EA, somebody who is operationally minded, somebody who offsets your visionary skills of seeing the future with the ability to see what needs to happen on a day-to-day basis, or at the very minimum, to document what is happening on a day-to-day basis, to document what you're doing. And the process we train our members, the process I've seen work over and over again for hundreds of visionaries, at this point it's probably thousands of visionaries, is to conduct a 2-week time study, which is where you write down everything you're doing in 15-minute increments for 2 weeks, review that list of things, and you're looking for those things that you shouldn't be doing anymore, that you can delegate to somebody else, that you can delegate to an assistant. But you don't just hand them off. You actually bring somebody in and you document each of those processes as it stands right now. You don't document improvements. You don't document the changes you're going to make. You document the exact process you're following. And with an assistant, you go through that process and you look for how can we make this better? And you make a copy of that process documentation. We like to use really simple flowcharts. You make a copy of the documentation of that process, of the documented process. Then you create some improvements. And then once you and the assistant agree, hey, this is what needs to happen, you hand it off to that person and you move on to the next process and start documenting and hand something else off. And you start documenting and hand something else off. This is a process that an assistant can help you with. It doesn't need to be somebody who has tons of experience in operations. It's just someone who is operationally minded. And if you're willing to go through this process of documenting what you're doing in a time study, creating the list of processes that you want offloaded, documenting those processes, improving them, handing them off, and then checking in from time to time to see how they're going, you will make so much more progress than trying to bring in somebody to fix it all. Because if you try to bring in somebody who's just going to fix it all, if they don't follow this process, eventually what will happen is, as a visionary, you're going to see that things weren't done how you've been doing them. And you're going to see that because they're not done how you've been doing them, there wasn't a good transition from you doing them to getting help with them. And processes are going to break, and there's going to be challenges in the business, and things that you were doing won't be replicated the same way. And you'll have problems with your members, with customers, with the product. It's just inherent in trying to have someone else fix it all for you. On the contrary, if you bring in an assistant and you follow a process to permanently delegate what you've been doing, you have a very high likelihood chance of success. And as you hand off each process, as you methodically go through this process, you'll start feeling like you have more time. You'll actually recognize there's something coming off your plate. You'll see that someone else is doing what you were doing before, and it's going to increase your confidence in the process of delegation. It's going to increase your confidence in the process of documenting processes and having them be real in the company. And it's going to increase your ability to do this with other people and to do this over and over again. Because as a visionary, what we have to understand is that what we are doing at the beginning transitions of getting help is what we need other people to do. And that's how we actually recognize progress. That's how we actually create more time for ourselves. That's how we get more off of our plate. That's how we end the death of 1,000 paper cuts, feeling like we have to do everything all at once and right away, and do everything in the company to make it grow. And, the story I hear again is somebody bringing in a COO, dismissing the COO. And at that point, sometimes they're willing to take some coaching and listen to me. And I'll have them go through this process. They bring in an assistant at a fraction of the cost. They do a time study so they understand what they're doing and where they actually need help. They start handing things off one by one, documenting the process, documenting improvements, making sure it's delegated, then checking in occasionally as they continue that process with other things that they're doing. And they start almost immediately recognizing that they're taking pressure off themselves. Almost immediately realizing they have more time in the day, almost immediately realizing that things are getting easier for them on a day-to-day basis instead of more difficult. On the contrary, when you bring in somebody too high level, they start trying to operate the entire company. They start trying to put new processes in place. They don't really have this ability to work at such a granular level. If you bring in somebody who really has been a COO at another company, typically that's someone who's very good at leading an organization, leading a team, people management at a very high level, people accountability at a very high level, but not this granular process that actually works to get you out of doing everything on a day-to-day basis, to get you to where you have more time, and to get you to where you can go from doing tactical activities in the business to moving yourself to more and more strategic activities, behaviors, and outcomes. Again, the question, how do I hire a COO if you're in the early stages of transitioning from doing everything, is not the right question. The question is, how do I get my time back? How do I become more efficient and more effective? And how do I increase what I'm doing from tactical activities to strategic activities methodically over time? We have the people in our membership go through this time study process at least once a quarter. If their company is growing really fast, we have them do it once every other month. If the company is growing really, really fast, we have them do it every 2 weeks. And if you're willing to go through this process and methodically offload what you're doing, you will make infinitely more progress than the entrepreneur that tries to do it all at once and right away by hiring a single person that's going to create the entire solution. Process, structure, and routine is what we fight as entrepreneurs, but process, structure, and routine is what will set us free. If you are in the stages of transitioning from doing everything to yourself to having a team around you and to bringing in help so that you can offload processes, so that you can delegate first time, then delegate the outcomes that you are chasing, then delegate success, we want to help you. At Simple Operations, this is exactly one of the disciplines we help CEOs, visionaries, and founders go through so that they can have more time to be strategic within their organization. If you'd like to talk to one of us about how we can help your company, go to simpleoperations.com, fill out the short survey right there on the homepage, jump on a call with us, and let us show you how we've helped hundreds of CEOs go through this process, get their time back, become more strategic, grow their businesses like crazy without feeling like they have to do everything themselves. Go to simpleoperations.com now, apply for a call, and we look forward to talking to you.